Rebecca Blaikie, first of all, thanks for being with me today. Appreciate it.
I'm glad to be here.
How angry are New Democrats heading into this convention?
I don't think that they're angry anymore. I think they're definitely still disappointed with the result. But I've been traveling the country now, I guess, for several months talking to New Democrats, and overall, they seem motivated to figure out, where we go from here, what we need to do better. And I was really encouraged just to see the level of engagement with that process. So I think New Democrats have been disappointed. Obviously, it was a disappointing result, but we're focused on what happens next, and I think the movement's strong.
One of the challenges facing all kinds of us watching how the convention unfolds and how it might unfold on the leadership question and party insiders and observers as well is what's going to happen to Tom Mulcair. And what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you have a sense as we head into the convention that his job is in real jeopardy here, or do you think he'll come through this leadership test?
I really don't know. I think that there are many folks out there supporting Tom, going to the convention to vote for Tom. There's also members who feel that we need a change, and it isn't a personal thing against Tom. It's just, in their mind, a strategic choice that they're making. And will there be more folks there supporting him or more folks on the other? We'll have to wait and see together. And I'm doing my best not to engage in the debate around it, because as president, I feel like it's my job to stay impartial in it and ensure that we have a fair process.
Right, but of course you are in the debate. I mean, you did say that you thought Tom Mulcair needed 70%, a threshold of 70% to stay on as party leader. Where did you get that number?
It's a number that I've heard in the conversations that I've been having with members. And what I did say was that I think that's a number he's probably hoping for, and that if he got anything less than that, there'll still be a lot of work to do, and it's going to be challenging for him. Doesn't mean he has to leave, but it would not be, an ideal result. That's all.
Okay, but by putting that number out there, I mean, have you made it largely impossible for Tom Mulcair to stay on if he gets less than 70%? That seems to be the number everybody now talks about.
Fair enough, yeah. I think that what will actually determine that is the vibe and the energy on the floor. So you don't want to be too, if it's 70, well, if he gets 69, does he have to, the actual rule is 50% plus one, right? So I think it'll all be about the feeling on the floor, and Tom will be able to tell, and I'm sure Tom has a number in his mind. So. Okay,
let me ask you, does Tom Mulcair deserve a second chance to lead this party into an election campaign?
Well, as I said, I'm just trying really hard not to have an opinion. I think that there's a lot of opinions out there, and somebody needs to stay out of the mess and ensure that we have a fair process. I'm trying to represent all the members. The members don't agree on this.
Right.
So there you go.
Well, what are your reflections as party president? You've worked closely with Tom Mulcair over the last number of years. What are your reflections on the kind of leader he is?
Well, obviously, I have enjoyed working with Tom. Before I was president, I was working with Jack Layton in Quebec, and when we first recruited Tom Mulcair, I worked on his by-election in Outremont. He's a smart guy, and he's a tough opponent. I think he did a fabulous job as leader of the opposition in the House. I mean, one of the great disappointments, actually, for New Democrats that I've heard a lot across the country, and it's in the report, is that we really feel that our work in opposition shifted politics in this country in a really positive way, and also helped to build consensus with Canadians about the importance of getting rid of Stephen Harper and his government. The only problem was we built that consensus, and then our campaign just did not bring it home.
Yeah, you built a consensus, and then the consensus among most of the voters was to go to the Liberals.
Yeah, well, and in fact, one of the quotes that's in the report that came up a lot was, even near the end of the campaign, we had these Stop Harper signs. It's like, yeah, but I think Canadians had already figured out that was the goal. It was about who to stop him with, and that's where our campaign fell short.
The report in it, and you mentioned it, the post-mortem report you chaired, you say Tom Mulcair's full capabilities were not on display during the campaign. What do you mean?
We heard a lot from members that they felt they wanted to see angry Tom, that the passionate guy that they had seen in the House of Commons taking Stephen Harper to task, they didn't feel like they saw him in the campaign.
It's funny, because people would consider the angry Tom thing a liability, but
totally, yeah.
A lot of your members said, where was it?
Yeah, so we like that guy, so that's why it's in there, because we heard it a lot.
And what effect did the balance, the pledge in the campaign to at largely all cost, keep a balanced budget, and out comes Justin Trudeau saying, hey, I'm going to run, which we know now not to be the case, I'm going to run $10 billion deficits, and voters turned out to be okay with that. I mean, is what happened here that when it came time to make the choice over ultimately who's going to replace Stephen Harper, they found, surprisingly to a lot of Democrats, a person they thought was more progressive in a Liberal leader than in the New Democratic Party leader?
I think that, well, one, I will never agree that Liberals are actually more progressive than New Democrats. I do think that the narrative in this campaign, because of the deficit issue, was one that they were able to capture, and it gave them some progressive cred. But of course, there's nothing actually very progressive about running deficits. It's about how you're spending the money. And we do see some good signs from this government on there, but we'll be pushing them to do better. The problem with the balanced budget piece was that it overtook the rest of our policy planks. It sort of overtook the narrative of the campaign. So what we heard from our supporters across the country was not necessarily, they don't have anything against balancing budgets. I mean, Jack Layton had said he would balance the budget too.
Right.
But it seemed to take over as a theme in a way that was, New Democrats don't mind balancing budgets, but they're not passionate about it.
And so I mean, that's, who's to blame? At the end of the day, who's to blame for that approach? Because I suppose you could argue there was, I mean, was there time to change it? Could you have, having said, could you have massaged that message somehow to come back from that position or back off that position? So, end of the day, who's to blame for sticking by that? Yeah,
well, maybe and maybe not, and there's always a lot of players figuring out what the best way to maneuver is in that moment. I also think, it was hard to know, hindsight's always good, but it was hard to know the Liberals were going to decide to run a deficit too, because only a month prior Justin Trudeau had said that he was committed to balancing the budget. So they did a real shift on us, and we weren't able to pivot in the right way.
Okay. Fair to say, I think leadership will dominate the convention, but after all, it is a convention about policy.
Policy,
so, in your view, what's the biggest debate around policy in the party right now?
I think there will be very interesting conversations happening around the environment and some of the best ways forward as far as, shifting our economy dealing with the reality of climate change. And there's actually going to be a really interesting panel of folks chatting about some of the ideas in the LEAP manifesto. Right. There's some people in the party who are really interested in some of those ideas, others who think that they go too far, and so I'm looking forward to a pretty good discussion about that.
Okay. I guess for progressives, there remains this hanging question, and the NDP's been here before. It's kind of interesting to chart the last couple of years, so close to power, and now the NDP's back in some familiar territory, trying to create a vision, trying to figure out again what do we stand for, and how do we message it to Canadians. And I guess fundamentally the question that needs to be answered is, why does the country need the NDP and Tom Mulcair if it has the Liberals and Justin Trudeau?
Well, for one thing, you'd never get this kind of progressive Liberal Party if you didn't have the NDP. And the Liberal Party historically has always been at its most progressive in times when they felt like they needed to deal with the threat of the NDP. And there's a reason why I think the Liberals became so progressive in this last campaign. It's because they were scared of the NDP. And the NDP has always managed to have an important impact on Canadian policy, even in opposition. So we'll continue to do that. And there is this whole other piece, like we can talk about all kinds of issues on which we share some ground with the Liberals, but when it comes to economic justice and targeting the corporate agenda, the Liberals just aren't there with us, and that's an important conversation that needs to continue in this country, and we're going to keep challenging on that front.
And I bet you we'll hear about it on the convention
floor.
You
will.
Rebecca Blaikie. And listen, I know you're moving on from the president's job, but thanks for always being available to us, and good luck in whatever you do next.
Thank you very much.